Hey guys, and welcome to another video. It is part 2 of my Unleash Lightning Shot build that I'm using in Season 9. I just finished some new gear and made some changes. There is stuff I'm still working with. There's still lots to be done with the build, but it is doing really well. I'm, just about 800 billion DPS, which is, I feel like, pretty good considering it's free to play. Oh yeah, free to play. I was gonna say solo self-found, but more than that, I'm basically free to play aside from the. I don't know why I'm saying this. This is silly. Anyways, let's get into the video. Let's start with the rune board. Now, what I'm gonna do is compare what I did in part 1 to what I'm doing now, and I want to talk about some things that are reasons I would make the changes that I did and whatnot. But let's look quick here at the previous rune board. The main skill. We're going to start with the main skill. Unleash Lightning Shot, Convert Physical, Shadow Archer, Physical Projectile, Earth Energy, Mana Storm, and Strike. Now, the only two changes I have made are Mana Storm and Strike have been removed. Now, I would be still using Mana Storm, but I converted to an energy build. The only reason I would say not to do this is if you do not have either of the two energy necklaces, either Capri's Heart or what's that other one? We're going to go look at it because I'm going to talk about it again later. Circulating Life. Now, if you don't have either of those, don't do an energy build. It's not going to be good. This obviously is an energy build, and because I have the necklace, and we're going to talk about why that's good, but let's start with just the overall of the main skill. So we're using Spot Weakness. Spot Weakness is a lot of damage amplification, as well as it gives you dodge rate and max dodge chance. It can stack, what, 5 times? 8 times. So you can get 1.6% extra max dodge when you're using this up close. I like to fight close. I like fighting melee, so I do use this. If you are someone who does not want to be close, just replace this with Mana Storm. This does more damage, which is why I use it, and overall, I feel it's the better choice. But obviously, if you are someone who does not like being close range, just switch this with Mana Storm, and you'll get relatively even damage. Extract Energy is in here, because Extract Energy is disgusting if you can use max energies, if you can get all your energies to 10. If you can't, don't even use this. I would just stick with Mana Storm in its place. Extract Energy is good for a bunch of reasons. One, it gives you the ability to use a second Extract Energy, which I'm going to talk about when we get there. And that one is strictly there to give you damage dampening, which is why I've set it up the way it is. Extract Energy, obviously, on its own is very strong. It gives you 50% damage amp and, 150 damage. Now, we are using the Awakening that gives you 2 extra energy, because otherwise we would be at 8, and obviously that's not max, and then we wouldn't be optimizing. So we're using the Source Awakening, and you want to make sure you get the +2 max energy. The second copy that we are using, and again, I'll talk about it later, but we're going to talk about it here anyway, is the Origin Awakening, and it's damage taken dampening per 1 energy possessed, which is 50 damage dampening. That's a lot of damage dampening. It's really strong. The rest of this didn't change from the original thing, but I am going to go through it. Convert Physical doesn't have an Awakening. Shadow Archer, I personally go with Origin. There are reasons you would go with other ones, but personally, I like the attack, critical, and projectile. I feel like it's the best of them. And the extra shadow archer. You can go with Verity. I don't feel like the projectile count is necessary in this build, so I don't use it. Amplify physical projectile damage. I do feel like it's probably one of the better ones. I do want to test it versus Mana Storm. I didn't think about it until I started looking at this video, and I am going to test it after. Mana Storm might be better. I'm pretty sure it's going to be better, but this is what I'm currently got. The awakening, source awakening, just more projectile damage. Earth energy doesn't have an awakening. Spot weakness for using source. You can you could argue any of these as the one to use, but I would I've never tested, to be honest, if the damage amp is better than the just projectile damage. Again, also with the spot weakness stack and the resource cost, there's reasons you could use any of these three. And you know what? I'm going to do some testing. I'm going to put a section after this. I'm going to do some testing. And again, if you don't have the energy, use Mana Storm. So there is the main skill. I'm going to do some testing real quick and put that right after this, and then we're going to do the rest of the Runeboard. So I did a damage test with Mana Storm in place of Amplify Physical Projectile, and it's marginally better, but at the same time, because of the increased mana cost, I would rather use the Physical Projectile. Now, again, we're talking about a very small amount of difference in between. It's only a couple of percent, like maybe. No, it's probably not even a whole percent now that I look at it. No, it's not even a whole percent difference. Obviously, Mana Storm can be used if you don't have Amplified Physical Projectile, but it's so close that I wouldn't switch it. And I wouldn't switch it again because of the increased mana cost. Now, obviously, I do want to bring up, if you have the, whatchamacallit, Transcendent Mana Storm. I was trying to think of the name. Obviously, the Transcendent Mana Storm would probably blow this out of the water, and I would definitely use that instead, because I think it ends up with 60% damage amp or something like that, as opposed to what this has. Again, I haven't ever got one, so I don't know, but that would be probably what I would replace if I got the Transcendent version. Okay, moving on to the rest of the room. Future, past, Mike, or whatever. I wanted to talk quick about multi-shot. Now, I use multi-shot in a very specific set of circumstances. The build has no problem clearing because of Shadow Archer and everything else. You have no problem clearing maps. But if you are doing something that is very low level compared to your damage output, and you want to go fast, if you're doing like Constellation of Time or something, I switch multi-shot in place of the, the spot weakness, because then I don't have to worry about being close to do damage, and it's got a bigger spread. For the most part, extra projectiles are not particularly helpful because they don't really do much in this build. But if you're trying to clear stuff really fast, switching in multi-shot for this is completely helpful. Next up, we're going to do toggles. Now, in the previous version, I was only using, I think, the one toggle. It looks to be, yes, I was only using the one toggle. I was just using Illusion Arrow, and I have it connected to all the standard stuff. Nothing has changed there, except that where I've put it in the board. And as always, where these are located in the board has no bearing on anything. You don't have to build yours exactly how mine is, as long as you fit the stuff in. So, Illusion Arrow, we've got Preemptive Strike so that we can gain the Preemptive Strike buff. Lower Armor, obviously, so we can get the lower armor effect. And then increase item drop rarity and increase essence drop chance. If you were trying to really get a lot of damage out of this, there's way better things you could connect here. What can you put that I would look at? So, the Amplify Physical Projectile, I'm pretty sure is something you can put on here. Yeah, so I'd put something like that, or a Transcendent Mana Storm. Any of the other damage ones. Because we're still using the, I don't remember the name of it, the new quiver. What is your name? The Transcendent Miracetes Wave. Because it gets the on-hit effect, it's worth considering using this as a damage output. It does a decent amount of damage. I should have kept it for the... It does a decent amount of damage on its own, and it does more with the wave because you're hitting that many times more. But I don't feel like it's enough damage that I would change the toggle and not have these two. The essence drop chance and the item drop rarity are both just really helpful overall. Toggle number 2, Seal of Striking. Now, Seal of Striking is obviously the best of the seals to use for an offense seal. We've got it connected to Improved Technique and Enhanced Seal Range. Improved Technique just gives it levels, which obviously gives it more damage, and Enhanced Seal Range, when legendary, gives it aura and seal effects, so you get a little more out of it. Obviously, all of our toggles are connected to a dampened resource cost, because obviously. The other one we've got is Counterattack. Counterattack is in here for 2 reasons. One, it is to obviously do counterattack damage and get the pain effect on enemies if you can. The other one is to have 2 more toggle effects, Center of Gravity and Extract Energy with the Origin Awakening. Center of Gravity, we have it as the, whatchamacallit, the Verity Awakening, so we gain the buff while we're moving, not while we're standing still. Obviously, if you were someone who cares about showing big PP target damage, you wouldn't use that. You would use one of the other ones. But I use it because I only care about mapping, and when I'm fighting something big, I'm not standing still, especially when you're doing something like the Abyss Gate, where standing still will get you killed. The Extract Energy Origin is on here because 2 things. And I want to talk about a lot of energy stuff here because people get really confused about energy. If you are running 2 copies, okay, of Extract Energy, and one of them has the +2 energy so that it doesn't lose the energy, and the other one is the Origin one, whatever extracts the first energy of a type is going to determine its maximum value. Okay, the reason I'm putting it on Counterattack is because it doesn't typically, you could put it on Illusion Arrow, but Illusion Arrow is going to hit stuff, and it's going to hit it a lot. And then if you extracted, say, a cold energy with it first, it will only go to the maximum of 8 because it has the -2 instead of going to 10 because of this one. So I put it on Counterattack because it is much less likely to extract an energy, and that'll make sure that it doesn't hit that -2 cap, because you're losing out on damage amp because of it. So I like to put it on here, not on something like Illusion Arrow. Our other 2 are defensive seals, and I can run 2 because I'm at 1,000 jewel score. When you are under 1,000 jewel score, I recommend using the Seal of Dodge. Dodge rate is better than just some armor in a grander scheme. Obviously, you do want to get your armor capped because it's resistance to physical, but I went with Seal of Dodge until I got over the 1,000 jewel score, or is it 1,100? I think maybe it's 1,100 jewel score to get the other seal. Seal of Dodge with the Verity Awakening. The Verity is the only one that matters, so it's the one you're going to go with. It gives you 5% perfect dodge effect upon seal activation. People get confused about this. They keep turning it on and off or something. This is a permanent effect while it's up. The other one we're using is the Seal of Defense because our armor is not quite where I'd like it, but with this on, it's very solid. The Verity Awakening, again, is the only one that's even worth looking at. It gives you armor amp. If, depending on how bad your armor is, you may want to reawaken to try and get that 6%. I'm not even sure what I got on mine. 4 or something like that. I don't even know where it shows. 4.6. So I didn't bother because I'm getting a lot of armor from other places. And again, here I've got enhanced seal range connected to those so that I can get this aura and seal effect. If I had another copy of improved technique, actually I'm going to want a couple of copies, I would connect that as well to gain levels on the one that I need more of. Right now my armor is lower in comparison than my dodge. My dodge is significantly over cap, so I don't need it. But if I had a improved technique, I would put it in here to give this some levels to get a little more armor. That is it for toggles. Now, eventually, if you get to 1,600 jewel score, you can use a second offense seal, and that's really strong. There's a couple of ways to go here, and the 2 important ones are either Seal of Condensed Destruction or Seal of Critical Chance. Seal of Critical Chance will help mitigate the energy issues, which I'm going to talk about more, because energy is going to tank your crit rate. It's also going to tank your maximized chance. So if you have a really low maximized chance, don't switch to energy or you won't do any. I will currently, in my plan, I will end up using Seal of Critical Chance as my second offense, not Seal of Condensed Destruction, because I'm using it as a rapid seal, which I'm going to talk about next. But that could entirely change depending on testing and if I get the Nakuben's Cursed Bowgun and where my crit values, because crit is something that you're constantly, crit and maximized, you're going to be constantly trying to balance the amount you get versus the damage you do and trying to juggle them so that you can get the most out of it. So it will be something that I have to test. But for now, those are my toggles and stuff. Let's move on to all the other things. Next, let's talk about our enhanced skills. Actually, we're just going to talk about all of it in this section. So previously, we were using Marksman and Tenacious Regen, and we are still using those. We just have more stuff on them now. Marksman now has Time Acceleration with the Source Awakening, Enhance Effect with the Source Awakening, Versatility, Increased Duration with the Origin Awakening, Improved Technique, and Decreased Duration with the Verity Awakening. You will see people using the Activate, Totem on here as well, and you can do that, but I don't like using it because totems are, they're not ever where I want them when I need them, especially when you're talking about in things like the Abyss Gate. They're either not where you want them or they die before they get effective. Now, depending on how you do the Abyss Gate, in a lot of cases, what you're going to be doing is activating the champions, running away until they get out of their immunity phase, freezing them, stunning them, binding them, and then taking them down. And the totem is fine in there, but I don't feel like it is worth the extra effort and space and stuff. Maybe it really makes a huge difference, but I don't honestly feel like it's something that I like. Now, again, it's solid. Obviously, people use it for a reason, but I don't personally like it. If you were going to use the totem, I would drop Versatility from this, because Versatility itself isn't doing much, because the Versatility effect gives us attack speed and penetration. Our penetration is currently over cap, and our attack speed is currently over cap, so we don't have to worry about either of those. The reason I keep it on here is because it gives attack enhanced skill rune duration. It's only 10%, but it's something, and I'd rather have something than nothing, obviously. The defense toggle, or not toggle, what it's called, defense enhance we're using is Tenacious Regen. I love it personally because it's a nearly full heal at any time, plus it gives you a bunch of regen and you gain a hit point boost while it's up. There's a whole lot of reasons I use it, and the two things I connect it to, obviously if you have space you can connect it to more things. Time Acceleration for the cooldown, and then increase or decrease duration, because I use it as an instant heal and it doesn't start the cooldown until the effect wears off. I don't use it for the regen effect because the regen effect is not very strong. It's the instant heal that I use it for. So this causes the duration to be shorter and the effect to be stronger. So I heal more and it starts cooling down faster. That's my two. You can put an enhance effect with the other awakening, the Origin Awakening, if you have space. But honestly, it doesn't do much because the thing heals you nearly to full no matter what. So I really wouldn't bother with it. You could put Improved Technique on there to get more levels and whatever. The other things you can put on this that are not the worst thing in the world are one of the like modifiers. I'm not sure what to call them. So Vitality Recovery gives you more regen. Overflowing Strength gives you armor and resist all, but the one I typically use if I have space to use it is focus defense. It gives you block expertise and block cooldown, as well as some dodge rate while that effect is up. It's not terrible. I definitely have used it in the past, and if I get space when I start changing things around later, this would be something I would put on. What do we got? Movement skill. The only two things you have to have on here are Disarm with the Source Awakening and Use Count with the Verity Awakening. I have two other things on here. I have Momentum and I have Reverse Time. Reverse Time, the actual effect of it, I don't feel is good. I have never once seen it actually do its job. Okay, so what it's supposed to do is you put a marker down, and then you're over here fighting stuff, and your health drops below 20%, and then it teleports you back over here. The problem is, your health has to fall below 20%. I don't know just about any time in the game that I get hit for enough that it takes me under 20%, but doesn't kill me. Because if it kills you, it just kills you. It doesn't move you over there. The reason I do have this on here is purely for the 15% movement skill cooldown recovery speed, and the Awakening the Source is just for the skill rune cooldown recovery speed. Momentum is on here for effectively the same reason. Yes, it gives you the momentum buff, which is damage taken dampening, which is fine. And good, but really we're only on here for this 5% skill rune cooldown because I want it to be as quick as it can. The other stuff we've got, the standard Shout of Justice with buff activation on crowd control is obviously here for its intended purpose. Breaks you out of crowd control. Very good stuff. Obviously, if you want to get some shouts on this thing, lingering shout and time acceleration to get the cooldown, that's a really good choice if you've got space to do. The only other thing on here we are using is Seal of Condensed Destruction with the Source Awakening, turning it into a rapid seal so that we can use it to do some more damage. It isn't the worst thing in the world. It's hard to make it do much of anything, but if you're going to use it, increased duration with Verity, time acceleration with Source, decreased duration with Verity, and a improved technique. I don't have another improved technique to put in here, but I've got a space for when I do. Again, it's not a huge amount. It's only 566 physical damage with what I'm currently using. The cooldown isn't great, the duration isn't great, but it's better than nothing, and since we don't really have anything else going on, that's what I put in. Now, in the previous one, somebody said I didn't really talk about the runestones, so I am going to talk about the runestones, but I am always going to talk about them the same way. Runestones are effectively not worth the effort. Yes, you can get some really strong runestones, so you can get damage amp and a bunch of other stuff. If you get them, great. If you get them in a spot that you can use, even better. I have a damaged unique stone, so I get 100 or 96% damage on my Unleash Lightning Shot. It's nothing special. Anything you can put on there that is going to help. You can get any of the ones that do damage. You can get any of the ones that like increase your crit rate or crit damage, maximize chance. Any of those are going to be fine. The other two slots I always reserve for the same two things: your enhanced skill and your offensive Seal of Strike. So we've got an attack enhanced rare stone, 10% attack enhanced skill rune effect on here. I don't think either of these, I've had a few of these, I haven't seen one that has anything extra. Again, if you get one, awesome, and you can make use of it that has more than this. Otherwise, just get one that does attack enhanced skill rune effect. If you can't get an attack enhanced skill rune effect, the other options are a +1 rune level, or what was the other one? I can't remember what the other one is off the top of my head, but there's two blue ones that are more common that you could use. The one for the seal, same thing. If you can get the one that does seal effect, use it. If not, +1 rune level is going to be your best bet. That is it for the rune board. Let's move on to whatever I moved on to in the other video. Gear. We're going to start, as always, with weapon. Now, what ideally you want to use here is a Vanished Starlight weapon. The problem with that, the only like minor problem with it is it has a really low crit rate. I think it has a 9 crit rate. And if you don't have a Catzer's Refraction or something, your crit rate is really going to suffer. And unless you've got a lot of other crit from other sources, I would recommend actually using a tier 35 crit damage implicit with a critical rate. Obviously, if you can get the Vanished Starlight, great. If you can get a Vanished Starlight with an extra jewel slot, even better. The mods are mostly going to stay the same across these. There are different variants, obviously, that you can get, but these are all going to be solid. Now, this isn't super optimized bow or anything. I threw this together. I think it was like the second or third. Second? It was the second piece I did. So I did my helmet and then I did my bow. So I didn't have a lot of resources when I made this thing. So I did what I could with it, and then we'll deal with it when I get more. So critical damage base is great, but the reason we take it is for the 11 critical rate base. The gear item quality modifier as the authority is almost always, unless you're putting it in your Lacrima for some reason, gear item quality is going to be the thing you want because that's going to directly affect the attack damage. I went with physical damage, attack damage, and then additional poison because I already had additional lightning from another source. If you don't have additional lightning somewhere, make sure you get additional lightning first. After that, in order of priority for me anyway, is cold, and then poison, and then fire. The reasons, so cold freeze is it's more effective. So having the 2 stun and cold is really great for it. Plus then you've got the bind as well. You've got the most chance for crowd control. After that, poison damage reduces enemy hit rate or something on top of poisoning them, and then fire is just poop, and you take it when you get it, but who cares. Suffixes here. Attack damage is absolutely the 2 that you absolutely want above anything else are gear critical rate and attack damage. There are a pile of other good modifiers you can get here. Crit damage, maximize damage. There's another one as well. Physical damage you can get. All those are great. I didn't get those because, again, I was low on resources. I took projectile speed and then crafted it into critical damage, and I got physical damage here. This isn't typically what you would want to do with your craft, because what you would want to do is either craft more attack damage on the attack damage or craft more flat physical off of the prefix. In an optimal world, you would hit craft attack damage and then hit the high craft on the other attack damage, because that's going to work on so many levels on getting the weapon to be very strong. The quality obviously is very important on this. I don't have particularly great quality. Again, it's actually not too bad, but I was low on resources, so I didn't worry about it too much. The legendary modifiers you want are attack damage and attack damage. I got physical and attack damage. That's pretty great, so I went with it. Either one of the attack damages is going to affect the base damage of the bow. Base damage is going to be what all of your other damage is based on, so obviously that's something you want to think about. The legend or the ancient modifiers are like, there's so many that are good. I got additional cold and armor pen, and I said, cool, good enough. Obviously, there are just like so many that are good, and if you are a person who has the resources to dump a ton into them, you can go through and look them up yourself, which ones you would want. Now, you can put a star jewel on here, and when I get another star jewel, I will be replacing this. Weapons can now do star jewels. Obviously, you want to do that. I've got a black damage amp jewel in here for the meantime. They're solid. If you can get one from the Abyss Gate that has a black and a star, it's worth losing some other stuff to get that, because it's going to get you to the 1600 jewel score, at least in my opinion. Yeah, that's it. I don't know why I was saying there's more. That's it. That's the weapon. Let's move on to quiver. Forgot to do the unique bow. So I'm coming back from a previous section. I'm past Mike in future. Anyways, Mirror City's Wrath is a disgustingly good bow. It's wickedly expensive, and I will probably never get to use it, but it's hands down better than the other bows. The only downside here, again, it's a 9 critical base, so you're going to need more critical to make use of it. Yeah, that's it. Get Miraceti's Wrath if you can get it. Quiver. Obviously, if you have the ability to do this Season 9, the reward is a selection box for a rental version of a Transcendent piece. Leo's End is disgustingly good. I don't know what to tell you. It's awesome. It's the best quiver. It's got attack and spell damage, projectile damage amp, 2 pierce count, which isn't anything, and additional chaos damage as well as an extra shadow. It's gross. If you can get it, there's no reason. It's the absolute best quiver. Alternatively, the quiver that is pretty solid that you can get is the Miraceti's Wave. I got an actual copy of this from Synth. I got this one from the selection box. It's really solid. It's very solid. Extra physical damage, attack speed, critical rate, man on hit, cold damage, and turns illusion arrow into an on hit. People are confused by the on hit. It's when you hit stuff, it goes off. Very simple. It's really good. It's very, very solid. I used it until I got this Lacrima, and then I put it in here because then I could use this Lacrima. This is not an optimized Lacrima, obviously. When it comes to an actual quiver, if you were to make one, this is the one I was using in place until I got the Leo's End, and then when the Leo's End runs out in 19 days, I will switch back to this. You can get a couple of really good modifiers here. The strike damage amplification from, I forget what it is off the top of my head, is obviously going to be very good. Flat physical damage, also very important. So, and then your other one, you have 3 options, and they're all relatively the same. Damage against enemies affected by status effect, again, affected by crowd control, and affected by dot, I think. Once you have effects, they all work relatively the same in terms of damage output, so there's very little reason to get any specific one. Again, I was pretty early on when I was making this, so this isn't really well made, but it'll give you an idea of what you should be looking for. Suffixes, physical damage. I went with hit rate here because I didn't have a lot of resources, and my hit rate was low at the time. I think there's another better modifier you can get here, but hit rate's obviously not terrible. The important one to get is the critical damage. The critical damage roll is really low, but because of that, it doesn't matter that you can turn it into physical damage amplification. Obviously, the higher roll, you're going to get better, and then you can get higher damage amp. I think it's like 6 or 7% at max, at 13, but it's very good. The legendaries, obviously, there's just a pile of really good ones. Just get whatever. The ancients also have some really super good ones if you have the resources to get it. The only difference between a tier 34 and a tier 35 is the attack speed that you get. The damage, the attack damage is so minor, it doesn't really make a difference. And the attack speed, again, we're significantly over the attack speed cap, that I didn't even bother trying to farm one. If you are still early on and you have the ability to do, yeah, go for a 35 to get the extra attack speed. But yeah, and then obviously a black jewel on there is going to be the thing. The authority modifier here, I went with area of effect, and I do want to address area of effect, and I'm going to do it now, obviously. Area of effect on the skill itself doesn't do anything, but if you're using the gloves, okay, and you get the extra hits, these extra hits are based on the particle effects from Unleash Lightning Shot. So this number right here, the explosion range. I had it up really high, and it gives you a huge amount of extra hits from those particles, and if you can get area of effect without losing much else, you should do so. I had I think 2 black jewels that they give you area of effect, and one's hit rate and one's hit points, and they are quite solid, especially earlier on when you don't have the damage jewels. I put area of effect on my quiver as the authority mod. I put it on as the authority modifier in here for area of effect. I was using, until literally just today, I was using decertification. Where are you? Decertification to get area of effect so that you can get those extra hits. It's definitely worth considering, at least, and you'll have to do your own testing because it's hard to say if one's admittedly just better than the others. But that's something I wanted to talk about, that this build does benefit from area of effect quite a bit. The problem is you can't just get area of effect on the skill. It's really noticeable when you get the Colossus effect, where the overlap is you get every one of the particles hits the same enemy, and you get this shotgun effect where it's really strong. I do want to try gaining a whole bunch of area of effect to see how effective it is at single target, because it does make a pretty solid difference at single target. But yeah, that's that. Moving on to helmet. Yeah, helmet. Now, the base here is totally up to you. It's not necessarily needed for the implicit. I went with the armor pen because at the time I had low armor pen, and I happened to get this one from the Abyss Gate, and because of that, I got a white and a black jewel, and again, these are going to make a big difference in your jewel score. The available options are all, there's one with damage dampening, there's one with like projectile, there's a whole bunch of good, and they all do fine. You're not going to get a ton of armor or dodge or barrier from them, so this is really going to be just a buff enhance helmet. The mods, I have a whole separate video for this. If I remember, I'll try to put it in the description, but I probably won't remember, so you can go look it up and see how I crafted this helmet. It's entirely for your enhanced skill rune. It's all to make your enhanced skill rune as powerful as possible. So we went with hit rate. Now, you could have got hit points, you could have got whatever. I think I took hit rate because I was just sick of doing it, but hit rate is not bad, obviously. Hit point percent is very important for end game stuff. You're going to need a lot of hit points. The most important prefix is the enhanced skill rune cooldown recovery speed. You can get a huge amount here, and there's not a lot of good prefixes besides it, so it's really important to get that one. For suffixes, we've got attack enhanced skill rune effect, critical damage, and you're going to see this repeating as the build progresses, where we're crafting critical damage on low value critical into physical damage amp. Obviously, you should go for that here. And then attack enhanced skill rune duration. I didn't get a particularly good roll on this. Again, I think just because I hit 4 14s and I was like, okay, you know what? Let's just go with it. The duration isn't nearly as important, but obviously if you can hit this higher, you should. The hit point is going to be the best legendary prefix. The suffixes have, I think there's 4 different good ones. There's hit rate, damage, mana cost dampening, and then something else. And really just, unless you particularly need the mana cost reduction, I would just take the hit rate or the damage. It doesn't make too much of a difference. As for the legendaries, or the ancients, I always say the wrong one. Ancients have a billion good mods here. I got attack enhanced skill rune effect amp, and I was like, cool, we're good. I'm gonna take it. There's something in here, and I always talk about this when I'm crafting stuff. There's something that is detrimental that you should always keep a reversion available, because I think it's something like dampen your attack enhanced skill but increase your defense enhanced skill, and it would nuke your attack enhanced damage, which is bad because that's where you get like most of your damage from. So always keep a reversion when you ancient. As again, for jewels, pretty much every jewel on the build is going to be black and white if you can get them. All blacks pretty much should be damage amplification. You should have one that is... Where is it? Elaborate attack, if you can get one, because of the flat critical. If you somehow get to a point where your critical is crazy, this is the first one you should take out, because the critical damage is not very much versus what you could get, like 6 or 7 damage amp. But that's the only other one. The one I am currently using is Instinctive Counterattack. For whatever reason, and I don't understand it, if I use Instinctive Counterattack, the physical damage reflect take and decrease is enough that I can do damage reflect maps with physical damage reflect. But the element damage, if I use the counterpart of this, I don't remember, I think it's Backlight. If I use that, I still die to the element reflect, and it's super confusing, but I wouldn't use this personally. I'm going to be taking this off. I just really hate reflect. This will be the first thing that I change. So yeah, any black, you're going to want damage amp, and the white ones, now currently I have element resist in here. I don't need that anymore, and I'm going to be getting rid of it. The options for white jewels, and I don't know why I'm doing this now and not in a separate section, but I'm doing it here, and I'm going to do it in a separate section anyway. The earth energy effect is fairly strong. If you can get 70 or 80 earth energy effect, that's a lot of physical damage that you're going to gain. It's definitely worth it. Obviously, you can do element resist, you can do chaos resist if you're low on it, and there's the 2 attack ones that I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's ones for attack speed if you're low on attack speed. Okay, that's it for helmet. I do want to talk very briefly about I forgot to talk about the thing in the weapon. I'm going to go back. But helmet, the Preservation of Reason helmet is available in one of the selection boxes. It's really good. It's a really solid helmet. Aura and Seal effect, hit point amp, skill rune cooldown, skill rune duration, damage amp upon using attack enhanced skill rune. If you roll this really high, this is probably overall better than a crafted one. But again, it's up to you. It is a great helmet. If I had it, I would have to at least do some testing with it to see if it was better. But it's definitely something I should bring up. Okay. I'm going to go back and do the weapon unique, and then we're going to move on to necklace. Necklace. Now, again, this is something I want to talk about because people get confused and they try to do the build without this necklace. If you don't have this necklace or its counterpart, Circulating Life, its better version, Circulating Life, don't use the energy build. It's not going to be nearly as effective, and it's going to like tank your crit rate and stuff for nothing. Capri's Heart obviously is a very solid necklace just in general. Item drop rarity, stats, max energy, critical damage, hit rate, chaos resist, and then fire damage, which is a lot of fire damage. The necklace itself is very good. I happen to get attack speed and element resist and Child of the Stars, which is just spectacular. I'm very happy with that. Obviously, you can get a star and a black jewel on it. You should get it. The necklace I was using until I got this is the one I should talk about, and I'm going to. Now, I used this one because it was like the best one I got at the time, and again, I'd done this craft really early on because I needed stuff. So this is what a very bare bones necklace would look like. You could do much better. I'm not going to talk about what you could do that is like way better, because again, in the end, you're going to want a Capri's Heart or a Circulating Life and go into the energy build. I recommend it. But in the meantime, there are a bunch of different necklaces. So attack speed is obviously good. There's one that does crit damage. There's one that gives stats. Any of them are going to be fine. Wrong thing. The prefixes, flat physical damage, hands down, absolutely most important. The other physical damage, if you can get it, great. And then there's hit points, and there's a bunch of other things. I got hit point on kill, and I knew I could craft that into something decent. I didn't have a lot of crafting materials at the time, so I ended up with a really crappy low value roll, but I switched the necklace not too much longer after that. Hit point on kill can go into a couple of different things. The suffixes, you're going to want a Capri for the 10% chance to gain damage amp on hit. If you have the ability to do, if you have Serpent's essences, there is one for, is it Akuben, that gives damage amp upon attack enhanced skill, which is also really good. And then necklaces come with skill rune cooldown recovery speed, which obviously is going to work on all your cooldowns, which is really good. I got hit rate because I just didn't have anything else. The legendaries, again, when it comes to ancient or to legendaries, there's just a bunch of really good ones. There's attack speed and crit rate and crit damage and blah 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 and hit points, and they're all good. And I don't know what the ancient ones would be because I knew I was going to be getting Capri's Heart eventually, and that I would use that. So I can't tell you what would be the ancient modifiers. I'm sure they're really good. Necklace is a really powerful slot. Yeah. I do want to talk, again, I already talked about it, but we're going to talk about the circulating life and why it's the better version of the Capri's necklace. Again, I've never got one, so I can't really comment on its effectiveness, but it's way more stats. It gives maximized damage and a huge amount of it, which in the extreme end game is going to be where a lot of your damage comes from, is maximized. It's got additional lightning instead of additional fire, which is better because fire sucks. I have a fire jewel giving me fire, but only so I can use the effects of it. Lightning damage is way more important if you don't have lightning damage. The good option here, or the good thing about this necklace, on top of the rest of the very good stuff, is the ability to use either the cold or lightning energy debuff reduction, because when you're using energy, the two cold and lightning, both, I don't remember which one's which, but one lowers your crit rate, one lowers your maximized chance. And this would help mitigate that and to give you some of that back. And depending whether you need more crit or you need more max, you'd be able to choose, re-roll it until you get the one you want, and that would be obviously very good. That is it for necklace. We are on to shoulders. Shoulders. Now, I talk frequently about how shoulders are not particularly amazing if you're enchanting, and what I recommend doing is making them a purely defensive spot. It is a great place to get a huge amount of armor so that you don't have to worry about getting armor anywhere else, and you can do a lot of it. So if we look at my defenses, I'm at 77,000 unbuffed with armor, and if I take my shoulders off, I go down to 14,000. So I'm gaining 63,000 armor from my shoulders alone. I recommend doing this. Now, I'm going to talk about the uniques after. Obviously, there's incredibly powerful shoulders, but if you're just starting or you don't have access to those, just do a armored set of shoulders. So first thing, you're going to want pure armor base. Don't do an armor something else base because you won't get nearly as much armor from it. So you want just armor. The the implicits, I think there's some good ones, but I don't really look at them, to be totally honest. Because again, when I'm making these, this is a thing that is going to hold the line until I get a better shoulder, unique shoulder. Armor base, the first two prefixes are gear armor and gear armor percent. Get them as high as you can, then get one of the two different ones, I don't know which authorities it is, that give you chaos resist when fire, cold, lightning, and poison are 100 or more, and craft it into armor amplification. When I get to the charms, we're going to talk about another way we're getting armor amp, but this is also a really good place to get it. Again, I mean, you're gaining a ton of armor from just this. Roll those. The other stuff doesn't really matter. There's nothing really good in terms of suffixes, so you're going to take whatever you can get. Physical damage is the only offensive choice here, and then the other two you just do generally resistances. My resistances were already good when I made this, so I just took whatever. I didn't really care. The prefixes and stuff, obviously, because there's not anything super great here. You can save yourself Vespers early on by just doing your prefixes and then Vespering the prefixes and then just getting your suffixes after. For the legendary, you're going to want hit point percent, and then I don't think there's anything good. Suffix? I don't remember, but I don't think there is. For the ancient, there's some really good stuff, but I don't remember what it is, and I don't have the ancients to do it. And again, this is a temporary piece, so I don't feel like I would bother trying to do more with it. Enhanced skill rune cooldown recovery speed is the best authority mod, and I just realized how low I should redo this because I'll get way more armor out of it. Obviously, this is something that I won't bother trying to get a T35 just to do it again. The only reason I would ever craft another shoulder would be if I got a black and a star that was solid armor from the Abyss Gate. Now, the 3 unique ones that are just way better than all the other options that, like, for crafting are shoulders, spalders. The Leo's Animosity, I talk about it. It's very gimmicky. You can't use any, or not any, you can't use very many runes. I'm not going to do a whole thing about it. If you get it, you use 9 runes and then your build's really strong. That's the thing. Personally, I don't like it, but it is disgustingly good. So if you're into that, you can use it. The Afro Story is something I've been lucky enough to get access to the last 2 seasons. Highly recommend. Very strong. It still gives you a lot of armor, even though you're not getting the extra stuff. It's still a decent amount of armor. And then obviously all the other stuff, you're getting sharpness effect, you're getting maximized damage, you're getting maximized chance based on how many ancients you're using. And in this case, I would end up switching out something somewhere. I think I have, because you need 5. Oh, I would have 5. Never mind. I would be fine. No, because I'd have to switch one, because this would be, I'd probably do gloves, but that's beyond the point. That's a really good shoulder, and then Comet's Perch is another really good shoulder that is best used, in my opinion anyway, in the Lacrima. Same with the Afro Story. If you don't have good shoulders or don't have a thing, it's really good in the Lacrima. Those are, all 3 of those are way better than anything you can craft in terms of damage output, and it's worth losing a bit of armor to get one of those if you can get them. That's it for that. We're on to belts. Okay, on to belts. Obviously, and I always talk about this, if you're wannabe big super damage guy, make a potion belt. I'm not going to go through the process. I don't use it myself. It is way better than other belts. It's just better, but I don't like it, so I don't use it. The belt I typically use is the Girth of Harmony. It's fairly easy to get. Obviously, if you can get one, it's great, but if you can't, you're just going to look for some basic stuff on a belt. Didn't I have my old belt? Did I get rid of my old belt? I must have. Hit points, mana potion, cooldown stuff. You can get, I don't know what else. Belt is something that I typically don't craft. It used to be a very important piece to craft, but recently with all the belts, it's not worth it. There are just too many good belts to use without having to do anything. Peddler's Potion Belt is a really solid unique you can get. Again, Girth of Harmony, this is like my 5th one I've seen this season, is good. The Overture of Grace, if you want to use potion but don't have the know-how to make a good potion belt, this one's fine. There is, what is it? The Hilt of Life and Death is not a bad starter belt. It's not great because these dampening damage don't really do much, but they'll give you hit points and element resist and chaos resist. Again, unless you're going to do a potion belt, it's really not worth your time enchanting a belt. But if you need to, and you're watching this, and you just let me know. I'll explain, or I'll find one of my old videos and give it to you. Yeah, that's pretty much it for belt. Real short one. Moving on to chest. Chest piece. Chest piece is a spectacular place to get a huge amount of dodge. And it's a varying degree of difficulty in crafting and making a better one. For the most part, when I start out, if I have low resources, I get a flat dodge chest piece, not dodge armor, not any of that. Get a flat dodge chest piece because that way you're going to get the most dodge out of it. Get gear dodge percent, gear dodge flat, and then one of the either dampen damage taken or attack damage skill rune level, one of those two. And that's my starter. And then you worry about the other stuff. This version is a 4 prefix with gear dodge, hit points, dampen damage taken, attack damage rune level. I just realized I have knowledge. I gotta change that. And then if you can get the reflect damage crafted into physical damage amp, you can get some more out of that. There are a ton of good modifiers for chest, but really I use it to get the bulk of my dodge. So again, flat dodge chest piece, gear dodge rate percent, gear dodge rate flat, and then one of these two mods would be my typical. If you have the ability to do a fourth and you feel your dodge is at a point where you don't need it, switch out the flat dodge for hit points so you can get a huge amount of hit points out of it and go with the rest of the stuff. There are a ton of options with chest piece, and it's another one where going through it in depth is going to be so situational to your build that I'm not going to go into a huge amount of depth. But there's a lot of good stuff on here. Again, I recommend getting dampen damage taken from here just because it's a solid amount of dampen damage taken. You can also get something where you can get totem. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. You can get totem and then do that into skill rune effect. When it comes to your legendaries, hit point percent for your prefix and bow skill rune level for your suffix. You can also get hit point amp as your suffix, which is really good as well. Ancients there's a bunch of really good ancients. I got these and I was like, this is fine because this isn't my end game version of the chess piece anyway. But there are a ton of good ancients that are all hit points and stuff that you can get. When it comes to unique, not legendary, man, I can't talk. When it comes to uniques, there are a few that are good, but none that are really worth the effort to get, I will say. The one is Alyssa's Wish. Really strong chess piece, if you can get it. Huge amount of hit point amp, projectile link rune level, projectile damage, gives you overpower effect, which is really strong. If you can get it, great, but it is significantly difficult to get your hands on. The other one that is always something that I bring up is the numbing armor. It's got a huge amount of armor, hit point amp, dampen damage, and you can basically die for free once every 45 seconds and still live, as well as some enhanced skill rune cooldown recovery speed. Neither of these two chess pieces I have ever had drop for me anywhere, so they are not particularly easy to get. And if you're looking for a super early on chess piece that I've used multiple times, and it's got a big downside, but it's pretty solid overall, is the Consecrated Bone. Early on, it's really good. It's got a huge amount of armor. It's got hit points, element resist, chaos resist, and dampen damage taken, which is great. The downside is dodge is disabled. Early on, it can be a great piece to tide you over until you can get the resources to make. I've used this multiple seasons. I don't think I used it this season because I ended up getting the resources to make a chest faster than normal. But this is a good starter piece anyway. Okay, done with chest, on to rings. Day 2. We're on rings. Now, with there being easy access this season to a lot of really powerful rings, I haven't bothered to even look at what I would do for enchanting or crafting one, because they're just so easy to access. So I am going to talk about the uniques and pretty much only the uniques here. If you are someone who really wants me to give you a rundown of what I would put on a ring, let me know in the comments and I will absolutely make a separate little video and sit down and decide what I would put on a ring. But for now, we're going to talk about the unique ones that are, again, fairly easy to access. The first one is the Akuben's Thunder. The baby version is really good. Obviously, it's not as good as the Transcendent version, but the baby version of this ring is just so damn good. I just use that for sure. You get it in one of the very early selection boxes. Definitely take it. Obviously, the Transcendent version is better. It's got more stuff. And I want to talk about this last line. I think I talked about it in the previous version of this video, but I'm going to talk about it in this one. Strike of Persistence effect is not the Seal of Persistence. It is Persistent Strike Attack Enhance skill. So, if you are not using it, these last lines don't matter, okay? And if you are using it, then there you go. That's what it changes. It changes it so that the critical hit is possible, that you get less critical damage and you get maximized damage. There you go. The ring's great. It's got everything you want, including mana on hit, which is really nice, and the cooldown recovery, plus a bunch of other great stuff. The Transcendent Caster's Refraction, again, I got from, I think it's the Runemaster 50 box, and it's really good. It's everything you want. It's got damage amp, resource cost, and flat critical rate, which is really important here. Unless you happen to have an Akuben's Curse bowgun, this is going to be your flat crit. Now, when I do get Akuben's Curse bowgun, if I get it, I'll be putting it in the Lacrima, obviously, because I'm not a bowgun user. Although you could do a version of this with dual bowguns or whatever, and that's definitely a viable option, but I'm not going to be doing it. Otherwise, this ring is great. It's not amazing. It does have really good stuff, but overall, it doesn't do a whole lot for you. But the flat critical rate generally makes up for it. Now, let's talk about some of the other rings that you can use. Again, we're only going to talk about the uniques. So, one of them is the Transcendent Band of Certainty. It's obviously very good. It's going to give you hit rate, damage amp when you get your stats to 200, and every other hit is going to be double max. Now, unless you don't have to use the Seal of Persistence with this, and obviously if you're going to go a crit build, this without the Seal of Persistence is still a really solid ring. It's got a lot of good stuff. The baby version is really not worth it. I wouldn't use it other than at the beginning when you're non-crit. The 3 hoops, another just pretty solid ring across the board. Lots and lots of stats, attack speed, critical damage, overpower effect, which we don't currently use overpower, but if you were going to change it in your avatar, which we are going to talk about, this would be a good thing to get. What is the other one? There's another good ring that's not incredibly hard to get. I can't remember what it is now. I don't pay attention to things. What was it that I was using? I was using one of these other unique ones, and I can't remember which one it was now. No, it's not Golden Doorknob. It was lower. I can't remember. But let's do super quick talking about what I would put on a standard ring by going to my standard character and looking at what he's got on his rings. Even though they're not super optimized or anything, this will give you a rough idea of what I would put on a crafted ring. So obviously, if you're low on maximized chance, the T35 max chance rings are a great choice. There's all kinds of good rings. Stats rings, there's attack critical rate rings. There's a bunch of good rings, and the tier and stuff doesn't make a whole lot of difference. Obviously, the level makes a difference, but the tier doesn't make much of a difference. Flat physical as the authority, the damage amp if your stats are blank or more, any of those is going to be good. I have area damage here. I would have projectile damage if it was for my build. The totem duration prefix crafted into skill rune effect, obviously is really good. And then the suffixes here are pretty standard. Critical damage, attack, critical rate, overpower. Now, again, overpower here wouldn't work with the version we have because we don't have currently overpower. But if you were using the avatar to get overpower effect, this would be a great place to get it. The legendaries are pretty straightforward. There's like a bunch of attack speed and physical damage, attack critical rate stuff. And the ancient suffixes and prefixes are, there's just, again, way too many to list, but that's what I would get. The two that I'm currently using, again, are really good, because you can get both of them without having to do any actual work to get them. And the Akuben's Thunder, or whatever it is, ring is really just, it's got everything you would want on it. And this mana on every hit is just so nice. It saves you having to worry about getting mana all over the place. Normally, you end up having to get mana reduction in different places to make this work, but with this and the quiver, in the Lacrima, I basically don't have to worry about mana at all because I'm getting 9 mana every hit. My mana basically doesn't move. Again, enchanted rings are not, for the most part, going to be as good as these, and because they are accessible through just play and getting the selection boxes, I would really just recommend getting these two. And yeah, that's there. That was a whole bunch of yapping for nothing. We're moving on to the obvious choice, gloves. Now, I talked about it in the first one when it came to gloves, but Miraceti's Miracle is just really good, even though they're not actually that good, which is really confusing. When it comes to the stats on them, they don't have anything particularly great. You get some lightning resist, dodge rate, little bit of critical damage, lightning damage, which is useless to us, attack speed, which we don't currently need, but it's not terrible, shock chance, which we don't need because we have good whatever. It's the last thing here that triggers additional lightning attacks, the same damage as the lightning particles upon hitting an enemy with unleashed lightning shot. Once you get this and a little bit of area of effect, this just does so much damage. And even though I have what would be an incredibly strong glove, hold on, I'm going to bring it up because I got it from one of the selection boxes. Actually, from the current season event, the autumn event, I got the Aquila Sunlight. No, that's not the right one. I didn't get it from there. Or did I? I did. And then I had this drop, so I got rid of the bound one. It's a really good glove. It's a super good glove. But it doesn't outdo the crappy glove because of those extra hits. If you can get much later, you can't get it until you can do a Biscate 50, where you can start getting distortion stones. If you can get this glove's effect on a distortion stone, switch to that glove I just showed. I forget the names of everything. Where are they? The Aquila Sunlight gloves. They are really good. They've got a huge amount of damage taken decrease, attack speed amp, hit points, skill rune cooldown, skill rune duration, and then if you want to use improved senses, I don't recommend it. Actually, no, you know what? You probably could get away with it because improved senses is a defense enhance, and it would give you damage output where the tenacious regen is only survival. So if you really wanted to go nuts, you could switch out this for improved senses and then use it with that glove and get some damage output. But that glove is just so good. Now, if you were going to do an enchanted glove, again, unless you are going to put this in the Lacrima, which I would not use a Lacrima spot just to use this so that you could make a glove. I'm not sure what I would necessarily put. You know what? We'll do the same thing as we did in the last one. We're going to hop over to my standard character and take a look at his. Even though I haven't worked on this character in forever, we'll look at the gloves because that's what I would enchant onto a glove now. Is more or less what this guy's got. with the exception of you wouldn't do this because I'm not sure if you can do this, and you shouldn't do it anyway. It's an whatchamacallit, an exploit. But you would want physical damage. Flat physical damage is going to be really strong. Attack speed. I can't remember what I would use. For the life of me, I can't remember what I put on my newer versions. And then suffixes, maximize damage or critical damage, attack speed amplification, attack critical. But again, even a really well-crafted glove is not going to do as much as the glove that is built for this thing. Because it just doesn't... It can't put out as much damage as those extra hits count for. And especially if you get a little bit of area of effect, a lot of those extra hits are hitting the same enemy, and they can all... It doesn't have a limit on how many it can hit. So if you have 6 extra sparks, and all of those are hitting the same enemy, that's 6 extra hits every hit. It's a lot of damage. The transcendent version of the glove, I talked about it in the first video, I'm going to talk about it again here. The transcendent version of this glove is not worth the effort to get. If it drops for you, go ahead and switch it. You get a little more dodge rate, a little more lightning resist, the attack speed becomes attack speed amp, and the critical damage goes up by a little bit. Overall, it is not worth the effort to get because the only major difference is that the lightning damage becomes lightning damage amplification, and because we are a physical convert, it does nothing for us. The effort to get the transcendent version of this is not worth it, but if you get it, obviously you should use it in place because it's a little bit better glove. Whew. Okay, that's all the stuff. We're on to the last piece, boots. Final gear piece, boots. Now, I just did a video on this exact pair of boots, so if you want to make these boots, go watch that video. I'm going to go through them super quick. Now, the base of these boots doesn't have to have, you don't have to have a particular thing. It just needs to be armor barrier so that you can get the totem effect range baked into the boots. You can get it through other means, but this is the best way to do it. The armor barrier, again, T34, T35, the implicit doesn't really matter. None of the implicits on boots are particularly amazing for this build anyway. So I went with crowd control dodge because I happened to get these from the Abyss Gate and it had an extra jewel slot, and I'm trying to get black white on all the slots, but I got a black red. That's better than what I was using, so I took it. We got strength, but strength doesn't have to be the third modifier here. The two that you want, the most important ones, are the strike damage and the movement speed increase. This could be strength, it could be hit points, it could be, I forget what the other things were. There's a bunch of other good ones. I happen to get strength and I went with it. When it comes to the suffixes, I personally always like to take the damage taken dampening here, because once my damage taken dampening gets to a certain point in my Zodiac, I will be able to drop these 7 points and move them to somewhere else. So getting enough damage amp to make it so that when I lose this 12%, it's not a big deal, and I can move those 7 points into more damage, I feel like it's a good place to get that damage dampening. The other thing we go for on the boots here is the totem effect range that we craft into skill rune effect. Skill rune effect affects all your skills. It's really good. I don't know what else to tell you about it. It's a great thing. The last one is the attack enhanced skill rune effect. It is a huge amount. It's 41%. That is a lot of damage amplification that you're going to get from your enhanced skill because of it. And high craft, ideally, you'd like to high craft the attack enhanced skill rune effect to get more attack enhanced skill rune effect. The rest of the stuff does have good mods. I happen to get sharpness, and I was just sick of rolling it, so I took the sharpness effect for now, but that's not optimal. The prefix, obviously, there's the standard 3, but you want to get ideally hit points, and I forget what the bottom ones do, but there's not really anything super amazing. Really, you just care more about the hit point and then something. The Ancients have a ton of them, and again, if you go watch my boot video, you can watch me fail a bunch of Ancients. The Ancients have some really strong stuff, and one of them is damage amplification, but it sets your move speed to 1,000, and you can't adjust it beyond 1,000. Now, if you were going to try and get that, there's some things that if you don't care about moving at only 1,000, I would do that, and then I would not get move speed on here. I would get something else in its place. And you could do a bunch of things dropping move speed in other places and make really good use of that. But moving at 1,000 move speed after you're used to moving at 1,400 plus is awful, and I can't do it. So even though I rolled that a couple of times, I ended up not taking. There was a ton of good boot modifiers, but as with a lot of the Ancients, I recommend caution in having a reversion ready in case you happen to, as you can see mine right now, are just legendary because the last one was the movement speed dampening to 1,000 to get me some more damage amp, and I don't feel like it's worth it. I think that's it. Is that all the gear? I am going to talk about the Soulstone and the other thing. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it. Let's move on. I didn't ever talk about these in any of the videos, and I realized that as I was looking at other stuff. So I wanted to come back and talk about the Holy Set bonuses. Now, obviously, these are more endgame things, and they are extremely difficult to get a lot of, but we're going to talk about them. So one, holy bonuses, the set bonuses for having holy pieces, do not apply to your weapon or your offhand. So don't worry about trying to get those holied because it's not going to... I mean, you can still get them holy, but don't worry about trying to get bonuses from them. So the rest of them, every time you make something holy, it gets a set bonus. If you have multiple pieces, you gain the set bonuses from those, and they can be very strong. The important ones, the ones that we really want to hit, okay, are Child of the Stars is the best one. If you can get even a 6-piece bonus of Child of the Stars, which is what I would ideally end up with these 4, and then my gloves and my shoulder, that you get a huge amount of triple max, not huge, you get 6% triple max and a bunch of triple max damage, as well as armor and all that other stuff. It's really good. Some other ones that are worth looking at, even trying to get 2-piece bonuses. Double-sidedness is really good, especially if you, like me, forgot that you don't have sharpness effect through other means. You can get sharpness effect through here and get it with a 4-piece, which is not bad. Blessing of the Plains is not terrible. Gives you attack speed, move speed, as well as acceleration effects. Then you could drop acceleration somewhere else. And I think Deep-Rooted Tree is the only other one that's worth trying to get even a 2-piece bonus of. Hit points, element resist, blah, 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 dampening. All really good stuff, but not worth trying to get a 6 or an 8. The only one that's really worth trying to get a 6 or an 8 is Child of the Stars. I don't think most players are going to get this, even the 4-piece. I'm going to be trying for it this season, which is why I have a 2-piece Child of the Stars right now. And it's hard to get them because you not only want to get the Child of the Stars, but you want to make sure that the other 2 modifiers are good. Anyways, that was just something I wanted to talk about quickly. I'm going to go do some other testing stuff and then get back to the video. Soulstone. Unfortunately, this season, I have not landed the Soulstone I want, which is Ilia. The reason you want Ilia is it has a buff that gives you 15% damage amp and 1,000 hit points per second. The second best, the only other one that's really worth using is Gogol, because you'll get 5% damage amp. The rest of them just do an attack every so many seconds and do some damage. Obviously, if you can get one with some stats that you want, that's good. In a perfect world, you're going to get one Ilia and hold on to it, put it on your character, and then your second one, when you roll it, you're going to see if it has better stats. If you finally get one that has a decent modifier, there is a massive list of them, but if you get one that has a decent modifier, you can start leveling it up. There is no point to leveling up a bad soulstone. Save those materials, because getting into the arena and getting soulstone level up stuff is a massive pain in the ass. So don't do it unless your soulstone is worth doing it on, which means you have the Ilya buff and then at least something useful out of these, and it has to be something good, not just something that's whatever. We might as well talk in this section about the Dawn Stone. So I have 1,000 jewel score. I'm able to use Dawn Stones. They drop only from the Abyss Gate. They drop on any difficulty. They are fairly rare drops. Now, unbeknownst to me, I thought that the yellow ones affected your normal stuff and then the unique ones affected your unique stuff, but that's not actually completely accurate. I have one that works on belt, and it changes the stats on this belt. And here we'll do a because people don't believe me, I'm going to show you real quick. Here's my stats of the belt with the stuff on. I'm going to take the stone off, and then I'm going to look at the belt, and you can see that the differences are there. So 25% hit points, 28% hit points, 40%, 46%. The thing that people don't get about the stones themselves is that the stones have very specific requirements. Some of them are really broad, like belt. It just has to be a belt. If it was a helmet and it says it's a strength int helmet, then you have to have an armor barrier helmet. It has to be the exact thing. I've had a few of these that were no good because they were for a dex or a strength pair of gloves, so it's not going to affect my gloves. Obviously, once you get to 1,000, if you can get one of these in, great. Some of them really, especially if you can get them affecting something really strong. Now, I think in a perfect world, you would get one for your weapon. I can only assume that it would be probably best if it was a bow. But again, you can't buy these on the auction house that I know of, so you have to farm them yourself. And getting to be able to do Abyss Gate, even Abyss Gate 1, is quite an undertaking. But if you can, what I've been doing is running the lowest level Abyss Gate that I can do in a reasonable amount of time. There is very little reason to go into the higher stages that are much more dangerous or take you a really long time. So if you're taking like 20 minutes and you don't really have that time to spend, instead of doing 5, do 1. You'll still get the drops that have a chance of dropping a Dawnstone. You'll still get the drops that have a chance of dropping multiple jewel socketed gear, as well as the transcendent gear. And obviously all those things are really good. Yes, the gear slot upgrades themselves will have a much lower chance of rolling, but it's better to get those other things than it is to about trying to get the gear slot upgrades, because eventually, as you get stronger, you'll be able to go farther and then upgrade those more, rather than trying to force those and lose out on gear and stone options. So long story short, try to do your Abyss Gate every day, even if it's on the lowest possible difficulty, and do as many as you can. That is it for the gear itself. On the character, obviously, again, I do have some gear slot upgrades. I think they're all at 5, except for my weapon, I've got to 6. Those will just come as you progress. Yes, you should be trying to get them. They're very nice, but they're not the end-all, be-all, and they're not something you need to really worry about because you can't do too much about them. We're going to move on and talk about Lacrima, and then we're done gear. As always, Lacrima is something that is more up to you and your situation than worrying about getting a perfect one, especially as you're coming up through the stuff. Now, I've had this Lacrima for a very long time and haven't changed it. Once you get one that you can put some stuff in, deal with your defenses first. Okay, so if you're low on resistance, chaos, whatever it is, get a piece that you can use to fix those problems. And after that, you're just going to be looking for damage. Obviously, the best options when it comes to damage are one-handed weapon, two-handed weapon, and quiver. And if you get rare ones, you can craft quite a bit of stuff onto them for a low resource cost. Obviously, you can do way more with these, and if you go look at the super high-end players that have big PP damage, their gear that they've got in here is very optimal. But even just something like this that I threw together, again, a very long time ago, you're getting additional lightning damage, physical damage, because attack and spell damage won't work in here, damage on enemies with status effect, damage amp when I use a move skill, got some crit damage on it, and I get that nice area of effect that I've talked about a couple times. The shoulders that are in here are poop. They're only in here because I needed chaos resist really badly at the time. Now I can put something better in here, but eventually I will just put a new Lacrima in here, so it doesn't really matter. The Transcendent Wave Quiver is something that I will probably try to keep in here because it's got a lot of really good stuff. Obviously, it was the quiver I was using previously. It's got physical damage, attack speed, critical. It's got that mana that's really nice, and the additional cold. So as I move into other options, when I try to get a new Lacrima, this is something that I'll probably keep. Now, when it comes to a super optimized Lacrima, one, obviously you're going to want it to have dropped from the Confrontation of Time from the Mist Burner, because you'll get the extra 20%. And that extra 20%, especially if you get a really high rolled rare value, can make a huge difference to the amount of stuff on a piece of gear. Again, if you're looking for stuff directly for damage, one-handed weapon, two-handed weapon, quiver generally roll the best damage output stuff, with the exceptions of, again, any of the uniques. If you could get something like a Comet's Perch shoulder in here, that would make a huge amount of difference to your damage output. If you could get a chest piece that is really well done, then you can get a lot of resistance and dampening, and then you can move things in other places. Lacrima is always going to be the flex slot because it lets you use gear you wouldn't otherwise use. So in my case, I would really like to get an Akuben's Curse bowgun and put it in here, because it gives you 20 flat critical rate, and in here that's 24 flat critical rate. You won't have to worry about your crit rate even with the negative effect of the energy, which I'm going to talk about more when we get to the Zodiac. And then you could switch the ring out for something else, and you could have more power there. Is it better to go for that bowgun than a well-crafted, rare, one-handed weapon? Obviously, you'd have to do your own testing because there's too many variables to know what is absolutely the best thing in here. Now, depending who you talk to, people are going to tell you unequivocally, like, this is the best piece of gear to put in there. And again, there are too many variables to say one is the best. Someone said that the shield, I forget what it's called, but it gives you guaranteed crit chance against enemies that are stunned, and they're like, it's the absolute best. You have to have it in there. It's not even worth putting. But for this kind of build, I don't feel like it would be. What I'm trying to say overall here is Lacrima is very hard to get the Lacrima itself and the gear to go into it. So really what you're going to be looking for is just one of the 4 blessings that we use, and which you don't know yet because I haven't shown you charms. I'm going to do that next. One of the 4 blessings that we use and has ideally weapons or a unique slot for a strong piece of gear. Okay, charms. Charms are always going to be a huge portion of your critical rate. If you were going to do a crit version of this build, it is absolutely critical that all of them have the prefix critical rate, because that does such a massive difference to all of your stuff. Don't switch to crit until you have all of those with at least the critical rate. Obviously, the best case scenario, you're going to get critical rate, critical damage on all of them. And in a perfect world, you're going to get critical rate, critical damage, maximized damage. Obviously, the maximized damage isn't going to be super optimal if you don't have any maximization chance. This is a great place to get that maximization chance. For the most part, a crit rate, crit damage, maximization chance charm is going to be perfect. With that said, as your maximized chance goes up, especially if you get something with a ton of maximized chance, like one of the good shoulders, these become less powerful the more you have of them. In most end game builds, you will see that they have a few maximization chance and then a few strike damage amplification, because as that maximization chance gets closer to 50%, it becomes less useful, and getting the strike damage amplification is going to give you more. So there's about the charms themselves. Obviously, I talked about we are using 4 different blessings. Now, you can avoid one of the blessings. If you don't care about your defenses as much, you can leave out Boreal. I use Boreal because at 80, Boreal gives you 24% armor amplification, which is a lot of armor amp. And that means that I need to get less armor overall to cap my armor and not have to worry about it. Obviously, if you don't care about having very high armor, you can leave this Boreal out and instead put those extra charms into the Leo. The Leo 190 that I currently don't have gives you an extra 5% projectile damage amplification. But I feel like that 5% is not as valuable to me as the armor and armor amplification that I'm getting from the 80 on Boreal. So the 4 we're using, Hamal at 230, because we want, I don't know why I left the screen. Hamal at 230, because Hamal's obviously very strong. It gives hit points, physical damage, hit point amp, physical damage amp, and then additional physical damage, which is all very strong. The Boreal I already talked about. Cathsor is a great utility one because it gives some element resist, it gives damage taken decrease, and it gives some damage amp at 140. Leo, again, up to 190 is great, but if you can only go to 140 because of you're using the same setup that I'm using, you get 12% projectile amp, a bunch of dodge rate amp, and some dodge rate and projectile damage. Really good stuff. In our star, you're looking for early on, this is a very early on T10 star that I made. All you're going to be trying to get is putting legendary double crits into this thing, and if they have legendaries that don't suck, then that's all you're really looking for. It's just 6 of those. I got critical rate, critical damage. These are worth significantly less to me now. When I make my new T10 star that I'm trying to get an ancient tier 10 star, but even if I don't, I will make a new one. We probably won't be doing the critical rate and the critical damage as much. Yes, we're still going to use those, but the maximized damage and damage amp are going to be much more powerful and useful to us. Obviously, it's going to be a lot more work to make that star, but when I do make that star, I'll probably do a separate video on it. Now, what I am going to talk about is what I did to get this set up, because people always ask, and some people don't know things about charms and stars and stuff that is obvious, but they were very strong players and didn't know things, so I'm going to talk about this. I'm actually going to put it in a separate section because it's going to be a lot of talk. The blessings setup. So to make the star that will get you this setup requires obviously a bunch of math, and I'm going to show you all that math so that you don't have to freak out about things. One, you do need some of your charm slot upgrades to be maxed. The most important one is this one here, the just legendary. And the reason we need that is because it gives 25% blessing effect to all. Now, it doesn't actually, and I don't list this anywhere, it doesn't give 25%. It gives half of that when you use it in an all slot. So it's only giving 12.5 extra percent blessing, but that is almost exactly enough to give us what we want. So that one you need at 10 so that you can use it in the all slot. The other ones you will need, I believe, at 10 are the Actually, I think you can get away with it not being at 10, but you're going to want the blessing effect on the one charm. Again, we're going to talk about which one, but the blessing effect, I'm pretty sure we need at max. And what's the other one other one that we need? I swear this one needs blessing effect. Is it not? Am I crazy? Did I lose my mind? Are you it? No, it doesn't. Okay, I guess it... Is it you? No, it's not you. Okay, never mind. So, for the setup we've got, you are going to use these numbers here. In your T10 star, you are going to put 2 Hamal charms, 2 Leo charms, 1 Boreal, and 1 Cathsor. Again, if you don't care about the Boreal getting the armor and want to just go into the Leo for more output, what do you want? I'm trying to talk. Come here. Come here. Hold on. We gotta stop, guys. This is important. Here. Here. Show them your face. Show them your little Pete's. You are so mad right now. How dare you pick me up like this? You filth. Okay, anyways, back to... If you don't care about getting the armor amplification and want to get the Leo damage amp instead, what I would recommend is just switching this Boreal for an extra Leo charm in here, and then that gives you a flex slot out here. You can either use a Leo, or you'd be able to use the second one of these actual slots. Instead of putting a Boreal in it, you could put any of the others, and it would still be fine. It gives you a little bit of flexibility, but it does, again, 24% armor amplification is a lot of armor amplification. It can really help your defenses. Outside, you're going to use the all slot for legendary, okay? And your numbers are going to be the opposite, effectively. Or not opposite. Why did I... It's not even the same. It's completely different. You're going to put 1 Boreal, 1 Cathsor, 1 Leo, and then 3 Hamals. They can be in any of the slots, obviously. The only one that needs a specific thing is the Cathsor has to get the blessing effect. Otherwise, it won't get enough to get to the 140. And it does have to be maxed out. I just looked at the math there. So you need this one at 10, and you need this one at 10 to use this setup. Obviously, you can do the other ones however you want. I am going to show you what I'm using, and I'm going to talk really quick about this. The all slot is a separate slot. You can have 7 total charm slot upgrades. I'm putting this in because somebody who's been playing the game forever did not know this existed. So you can have that plus 1 on each of them. In my case, again, we're using the legendary for the blessing effect because we need it. The prefix option is a really good choice because it does the option, the prefixes itself, and the when you see, oh geez, there's too many things. There's too many things in this game. Exclude legacy legendary prefix option. Confuses a lot of people. Here's what you do. I'm going to save you. Remove these first 2 words. Unless you are playing on standard, they don't matter, okay? So legendary prefix option plus 26%. There you go. Ready? That solves it. So prefix is really good because it gives, what is this, 48% to your legendary. Now, if you don't have a good legendary, don't necessarily worry about this. This one will make a big difference if you're getting a maximization chance or a damage amplification. If it uses for something else, it's not as important. Critical 2 is a good one, and this is a requirement. People get confused about these, which is why I'm spending the extra time on this now. Critical 2 means that it has to have 2 critical options, okay? Critical rate, prefix, critical damage suffix, critical damage legendary. Those are the 3 possible options. You can also get away with one if you happen to get like a critical rate and a maximized, and then it's got like minion critical damage. That'll still count as a crit, and it will still apply to the charm. It just won't give you good stuff. The same is applied here with Maximize too. Maximize has to have 2 different Maximize modifiers to use it. So this one here I can use it on because it's got Maximize damage and the Maximize chance. If it only has one Maximize modifier, it won't apply to the charm. The suffix option is again a really good one. It only applies to the suffix, but the legendary prefix gets that extra 40% because all legendaries are prefixes. I don't know why they've done it like that, but that just makes it easier. Some other good ones, I use the T9 and above, which means the modifiers themselves need to be T9 or above to be affected, and you need the charm to be T9 or above, which is obviously duh. Some other good ones, the legendary one is great. It's got some good things. The only downside is that it takes 50% off your legendary prefix. I typically use this one on charms that don't have a legendary prefix yet or have a bad legendary prefix so that I can use it in the meantime. Outside of that, there's not really many other ones that are worth mentioning except for, and I don't know why I'm bringing these up. T7 and T5, if you go into these crazy super optimal setups, can be really strong. So you get a T7 charm that is the modifiers you want and you legendary it, and even though you get less blessing effect, you gain a crazy amount of prefix options from this, and same with the T5. But with that said, getting an optimized T5 charm and it's got good modifiers and stuff is like super ridiculous hard to pull off. You basically can't roll them or anything. You just have to hope they have them. So I do bring them up, but unless you're willing to put in a huge amount of legwork, they're not worth it. Oh my god, that was way more talking than I normally do for this section, but I wanted to make it a little more clear with the numbers and stuff because people get confused and people don't know about certain stuff, and I never really talk about it in these videos. Anyways, that is that. Let's move on to finally the Zodiac. Zodiac. Now, there is a lot going on in my current version of it that if you don't know why I'm doing the things that I'm doing, don't seem logical at all. And I'm gonna talk about all of the illogical choices that I've made because they are when I talk about them. Obviously, we're going to talk about the Zodiac stones as well, and there's going to be some information there that if you don't typically pay attention to Zodiac stones, maybe you should. Trait 1, obviously just go across the top over to Strong and Strike. Nothing fancy here. The Zodiac stone you are going to want is the Just Damage one. It doesn't have as much as the one that says Physical, but it is not worth the extra 3 Zodiac points you'd have to put in here to get it to be, because it needs to be 8 or more. You can use any of the activatable ones. The Sun ones have extra modifiers that may or may not be good. I haven't really got into them too much. Long story short, the things you would optimally want on this stone would be hit point percent and element resist, because they're a great place to get all of those things. Hit rate and block expertise are also not the worst things in the world if you happen to get them. On to trait 2. Now this is somewhere where, again, you're going to see me making weird choices. Typically, I would not take these 2 points. They are not anything special. Projectile speed is basically worthless. Dodge rate, I do not need. This little bit of damage and hit points isn't worth the Zodiac point. The reason I am currently doing this, and this is purely for testing purposes, and once I get the other Zodiac stone that I'm going to want, I will probably end up, we'll test them and then I'll see which one's better. So if you get a Star Zodiac stone, it can have flat physical damage on here, and flat physical is just generally very strong. Again, I will need to do some testing when I find a moonstone that doesn't have it, because the only way you can get the Star Stone in is to put these extra 2 points, and I'll have to see if losing that flat physical and these 2 points, or gaining that flat physical and losing these 2 points, is worth putting on a different stone and then taking these 2 points back and putting them somewhere else. It's a lot to test, but once I get some better Zodiac stones, which I'm currently working on, we'll worry about that. Obviously, again, if you happen to get one of these star stones, this flat physical is very strong. As for the rest of the stuff, you're typically going to want hit points, element resist, and hit rate, any of those three. The armor or the dodge is going to be the stone you want. I went with armor here because my armor is lower than my dodge. My dodge is some ungodly high number, like 500,000. So I have significantly more block or dodge than I need, and my armor was a bit low, so I tend to go with the armor stone here, but a dodge stone is also fine. Trait 3, pretty standard through here. I typically, especially early on in the game, do not go down to Gold Hunter. Obviously, it's some damage amp, which is great, but it's 20% hit point dampening. And in the later end of the game, hit points are going to be a bigger deal. I don't typically waste the points to go to. I just go to Nimble Excavation and Excellent Senses. If you don't care about your hit points at all and you think you're super strong and invincible, drop one of these two and go down into Gold Hunter. I would probably say drop the projectile ones as opposed to the physical ones, because some of your stuff might end up not being like a counterattack is melee, so it wouldn't get this bonus. Not that it really matters, but I would go for the physical damage over the projectile damage. The stone here, there's hit point, mana, and enhanced potion effect. Go with the enhanced potion effect, even if you're not going to be an enhanced potion belt user, because hit point and mana really don't make much of a difference. And the few times that I do use enhanced potion effect, like an item drop rarity on an important boss, or the Runemaster potions when I'm trying to burn through Runemaster, this will help a little bit. You can go up to a star. As far as I can tell from my searches, there is no particular reason to use a star over a moon. It doesn't make a difference. Obviously, you want the higher value slots, but mostly you're just going to go for the same stuff here. Obviously, I haven't rolled this stone. You're going to want the same standard stuff. Hit point, element resist, hit rate. Trait 4. Now, again, I've got extra points in here that I wouldn't normally have. I normally wouldn't have these 2 points in, or I wouldn't have these 4 points in, but you need at least 8 nodes to get the hit points from here, and I wanted the hit points, so I put in the extra point. I think I initially had it down here in like poison resist or something, but I had a spare point that was just floating around doing nothing, so I brought it up here. You don't need to have this to activate it. What I would typically say is just pick your your lowest resist and take that extra point and put it here. This is only in here right now just for floating point. Again, pretty standard here. You can go up to a star. It doesn't make any difference from what I've seen if you use a star or a moon. Get a rare with the hit point and get 3 mods, element resist, hit point, hit rate. Up into trait 5. Elaborate attack is absolutely critical to your critical build. This is a flat 10% critical chance. It is not additive. This is the most important if you are, especially if you're having trouble with crit rate and you need to get it up. Critical chance is flat, not other. The next one is in lightning. We go over to group defense. This is purely for the damage taken decrease, and I'm, especially now that I'm using the energy, I don't need this as much. And because I just finished my boots that had 8% dampening, it is very likely that I'm going to be shifting this out of here soon and moving it to something more offensive. But I did want to keep it in here for this video because typically very late into the season, again, we're 6 weeks in, I still use this until my damage dampening gets solid. And especially now with the Abyss Gate and that damage output being so high, this is, I feel, really important. But once you get to a point where you're at like 50 or 60% buffed damage dampening, this becomes much less useful, and you could switch it out. The other one in here is in Flash. from damage on attack over to muscle strength explosion. It's just a very solid thing. You get hit point, not hit point, goddamn, hit rate amplification and damage amp upon attack. Both very good. Plus, hands quicker than light is 20% attack. Overall, very solid. You can, if you really don't need the attack speed, you can go across the top and get physical damage taken dampening instead. Or you could go across the bottom and try to get the mana on hit if you're having any kind of mana trouble. There's a bunch of options in here, but really you're just trying to get between here and here with some of the stuff. The Zodiac Stone, attack, aura, and seal effect, hands down the best one. This can make a pretty decent amount of damage amp from your Seal of Striking. And again, when you get it, you can use up to a sun because you have so many Cosmos nodes in this one. Now, again, I haven't seen one this season, and I haven't really done any research to see if there's any particularly important mods, but generally the sun ones are going to have higher values to the things. They might have some special ones that are really important, but I haven't seen one this season, so I can't really talk about it. Moving on to trait 6. Now, you don't have to have any points in here at all. The reason I currently have 3 points in here is because I want this Zodiac Stone eventually, and even though the Zodiac Stone itself doesn't have a particularly good thing, I will be trying to get crowd control dodge rate. It's not something that's super important. You can also get dot dodge rate and effect, what is it? Hold on. Status effect dodge rate, which are all fine. The reason, again, that I'm going to be aiming for this is hit point, element resist, hit rate. I have these 3 in here just as a placeholder. If you don't have a Zodiac Stone in here, these are not a particularly good use of your points because it doesn't give you much. Attack critical rate, attack critical damage, a little bit of attack speed, damage on attack. Not really worth the 3 points, but again, I only have them in there because I'm going to get a Zodiac Stone and I've just placed them already. The Zodiac Stone, again, you could choose any of the 3 dot or whatever, but I go with crowd control because it's the biggest threat in the Abyss Gate. Oh, Statler, this is a lot of talking. Oh, I know. Trait 7 has a ton of good stuff. I always like to go into Raging Particles. This 1% chance to ignore enemy armor is more important now that we have the Abyss Gate. Getting enemy resistances down is really hard, and especially when you get into the high Abyss Gates where their resistances are like 400, even if you get your 65% or even 70%, you can lower it a little bit, but you're still not doing a lot of damage. This chance to ignore enemy armor, even though it's only 1%, means you're doing full damage on that hit. It's 1 in 100 hits. You do 5 hits a second. You do the math. It's quite a bit of damage. Plus, obviously, you get physical damage amp in there too, and some chaos resist, some other good stuff. And it saves 1 point if you're going to do the thing that I was doing where I was using decertification to get more area of effect. I don't know how much area of effect is going to be a big deal later on when I get more optimized, but this is something that I would be going for anyway. The other one that I always go for is at least 1 in Spider. Now, we use all the damage types currently. When you start out, go with the physical one because you might not have cold damage or whatever. Physical thing, stun rate, and then down at a confirmed kill where you get damage amp against stunned enemies. Now, you can. I've been wrong in the past, and I want to talk about this really quick. In the past, I had said you can't get all 3 of these at once. Later on, after some testing, I realized the reason I couldn't get all 3 at once is because they literally couldn't show enough debuffs on the enemy. And it was always showing that one last, so it wasn't on the list. You can get all 3 of these debuffs. So that's 30% damage amp against stuff. The reason I don't put all of them in, sometimes I'll put this one and cold, because the biggest enemies right now that you have to deal with are champions, and champions are immune for the first 15 seconds. And then after that, they're not, and you can do the thing. But I feel like this is not, having 1 is good enough. Obviously, it is a lot of damage amp if you want to put it into things, and if you have extra points, you can definitely mess around with these. They're all very strong. Again, they're extra chance to keep an enemy crowd controlled and damage amplification. Down here in Maggot, once you start getting the extra stat points, these are very strong because it's few points for a lot of stuff. Here we got 4 points to get 5% amp, and then another 5% amp, which is great. I don't have enough int to make use of Path of Intellect yet, so I went with Power of Harmony because it's just another 2% amp. Very strong. Obviously, if you don't have 500 strength or 500 dex, don't put your point in there, put it somewhere else. Last in here, we've gone across in Scent to Sensational Perfume. It's crit rate and damage amp when you're using a two-handed weapon. It's great. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't see any reason to not use it. Yeah. Did I get them all? No, I didn't. Over here into Fang is, again, just straight projectile damage amp and hit points. Really good stuff. No, that's not the one. I was thinking of something else. But yeah, those are good. The Zodiac Stone here, attack enhanced skill rune effect, as much as you can get. You have a lot of points. You can use a sun. Again, I don't know if there are any that are worth trying to get a sun specifically so that you can get an extra modifier, but you're looking for the standard stuff here, element resist, hit point, blah, blah, blah. Into 8, again, I've only got 3 points in here because I don't need the stuff in here particularly. Rune Counselor is always a pretty good 3 because it gives you skill rune cooldown recovery speed and skill rune duration that affect all your important stuff, and it gives us access to a moonstone so that we can put it in here. The stone you would typically want here is the attack speed. I think it's just attack speed. But because you need, 4? You need 4 Cosmos nodes to make the effect of the stone work. I typically don't go to that effort because it's just attack speed and I don't need it anyway. So as soon as I get a 3 mod moon, I'm just going to put that in and go for the standard hit point, hit rate, element resist. The last one, and this will vary depending if you're energy build or not. First one, we've gone over into Frost Shard. Sorry, nope, that's not the first one. First one, we go over into Storm of Destruction, and typically over into Storm of Pierce. 2% chance to ignore enemy armor. Again, that gives you up to, that's 3% now that you have. So 3 in 100 attacks are going to do full damage. Great stuff. Storm of Destruction gives you max armor penetration. It's well worth the 3 points. And if you're only going to put 3 points in here to activate the stone, these are the 3 you should use. Obviously, I don't have the right penetration here, but I am still significantly over the penetration cap without it. There are 2 that matter, physical penetration and just penetration. Neither of them makes a difference which one you use, but the physical one has a higher roll value, so if you can get one with physical, you should go for it. The other thing we have in here, and you only take this if you are using the energy build and don't have an exceedingly high critical rate, is coming over into Frost Shard. The cold energy debuff is minus 6% critical rate per energy you have. So that means up to 60% it nukes your crit rate, and it's a lot. So this can help mitigate that quite a bit. It's worth the 5 points to come into here if you switch to the energy build and want to use critical still. Definitely worth switching 5 points from somewhere into here. For our specialties, we've gone into darkness, over here into hit point amplification, projectile damage amp, and most importantly, we're getting our hit point absorb on hit. You want to make sure you get this somewhere. Typically, I get it in my gloves because I convert the attack speed into hit point on hit. But currently, because we have the gloves that we can't do that, this is where we're getting our hit point absorb. Frankly, I'd like more than this, but this is fine and will keep you alive. Then we're going down into acceleration and projectile amp. Obviously, very good stuff. Acceleration makes you move faster, makes you shoot faster, and the projectile amp is great. You occasionally may run into mana problems. I don't, because of the two things I have: mana on hit. If you are in a situation where you're having mana trouble, you can go into convert mana, so like acceleration and convert mana. What do you want, sir? What do you want? Meow is what he wants. There are other options you can go with here. The +2 projectile count in some builds makes a huge difference. In this build, your projectiles don't really matter. Having extra, unless you're really struggling to clear, it's not worth losing the other stuff just to get these projectiles. The Zodiac Stone, there are 3 that are potentially good, which is this one that is flat damage. Then you can get strength or dex. Personally, I think the flat damage is probably the best one. As for the modifiers on here, they vary wildly on the level and the star and stuff. So obviously you're just going to look for the standard stuff. Damage upon attack, damage amp, anything that's going to make you hit harder is typically what you're going to want on here. Trait 2, or specialty trait 2, is very... You can go all over the place with it, and depending on what you're trying to do, there's reasons to take all of these things. I just realized I have sharpness effect and I'm not using sharpness. I'm gonna change that later. Band of Agony is generally really nice. Chance to inflict pain is 10% damage taken increase, which is very strong, and it's multiple stacks of different pains. So the one you get from, what's it called, counterattack, and I think we have another source somewhere as well. So those all can be going off at the same time. The rest of the stuff isn't particularly great, and now that I realize this sharp, I might have to do some testing. The other one, I go over here, obviously, perfect dodge is great, and then projectile damage amplification is great as well. There is a lot to be said about Dance of Life. It's a lot of hit points, up to flat 500 hit points, and it's some damage amp at hit 80% hit points or more. You're always going to be at 80% or more hit points with this build, except for the occasional times you're going to take a massive hit, and it's going to bring you down, and then you're just going to use Tenacious Regen and bring you back up anyway. Now that I've looked at this, I might end up switching back to sharpness and Dance of Life because I just realized I have a bunch of sharpness effect on my gear and stuff. But again, either way, Band of Agony or this combo here is still going to get you about the same, depending on what you're looking for. The stone, obviously, you're going to want the damage taken dampening one as opposed to the physical or the element, because damage taken dampening is going to cover all 3. It's going to do chaos resist as well. The stuff you can get in here is, again, really varied depending on the type of star and the tier of the values. There's a bunch of good ones. There's damage amp and stuff, attack enhanced skill rune duration, attack enhanced skill rune effect. Again, I haven't rolled this because it's not one I want anyway, but I got some stuff and I moved on. And oh my god, finally, last is specialty 3. For me, it is no question we go into the Falcon Hunter stuff. We go Falcon Hunter and then over here. I have done testing with other stuff, and this always seems to come out on top. I don't know if there is a better version. I also tried, because people asked, I tried going over here and going into the extra area of effect to see if I can get more hits, and you get a ton more hits with the extra area of effect in this specialty tree, but you end up doing less damage. If you are using this build and you do have a better setup for the specialties, please let me know. If at the very least, I will test it. But there is the Zodiac. Now, when it comes to your stats, I put minimum into int, and then I split strength and dex evenly. Once my hit rate is capped, any extra stats I get, I make sure I put into strength so that I can get more armor and hit points. There you go. The hidden thing about dexterity, and I don't know why they didn't put it on here, but I like to talk about it, is every point of dexterity gives you critical damage dampening. So if you look at your defenses and you go to here, this critical damage dampening is based on, partly on anyway, your dexterity. So even if you're at cap, if let's say you want this number to go up and you don't want to put it in other places, putting more dexterity will get you less critical damage. Holy damn, that was a long one. But we're done. Okay, we got about a million other things to still talk about. Let's get to it. I made the change. I went back and changed the Zodiac. I went and took the pain effect, the Band of Agony, and put it into the critical in the other, and this is the new one, this is the old one. It is like way better in my case to go for the, hold on, I'll show you the thing. Stop attacking for a second. Switching to Dance of Life and Sharpness as opposed to Band of Agony. One, I gained like 5,000 hit points, which is obviously really good. And because I have Sharpness effect on 2 other places, this Sharpness counts for enough that it was worth getting rid of this. So, if you want to make that choice, I recommend going for this. It's probably very close, even if you're not gaining extra Sharpness effect. I know when I initially tested it, this was more, but now with 2 spots giving me Sharpness effect, this is better. As well as the difference that when I initially tested it, I was not an energy build, and now I need more crit rate than previously. So there you go. That is the test. I recommend switching that from the previous thing that I said to do. Let's talk Avatar. Now, typically, you go with sensory stimulation. The only downside to sensory stimulation is that it increases the damage you take. Now, if you're at a point like I am, where I'm at very high damage dampening, this is already being mitigated and it's not a big deal. And with it, plus its passive effects of cooldown recovery speed and increased sensory stimulation effect, you actually get like 18% physical damage amp from it, but it's 10% damage taken increase, but it's constant. So it's very strong, and it's probably it is the best one. The other option is to go with Overpower. And Overpower is good, but it really only helps if you're at a lot of Overpower effect. And currently I don't have anywhere on my gear that gives me Overpower effect, so it's not really worth it. The passive I take here, there's 2 good ones. There's the Enhanced Range or Enhanced Strength. If you really need the stats, if you're saying trying to get to 500, 500, 500, go with the Strength. Otherwise, go with Enhanced Range. The extra area of effect makes a big difference on the amount of extra hits you're getting with your Unleashed Lightning Shot, and I feel is really strong. So that's from Avatar of Katsor. Avatar of Leo is very meh. The reason I'm currently using it, honestly, is for the movement speed amplification and the movement speed increase. I don't need the attack speed. I could switch to something else to get like dexterity stats or just more stats, but there's nothing else really that's going to help you in terms of damage output, not that I see. So Leo is generally what I go with just for the extra move speed. Avatar of Spica is no-brainer here. It gives you straight physical damage and double max chance. Absolutely worth it. Last one almost always is Boreal, and it's because you can only take the first or second slot on a passive for your last one because it only goes to level 15. So this is the only one that helps. It gives you a flat 100 hit points. When it comes to your soul and core and soul gem, why can't I talk? They're really optional which ones you're going to go with. I went with the armor and the strength again because I was having trouble with my armor. I do have a whole bunch of these lined up that I'm going to be doing. Most of the time, you're just going to want one that hits like a hit point in the prefix suffix, and your legendary is either going to be hit point amp or damage amp. Obviously, you take whatever you can get. Whether it's armor or dodge is very unimportant as long as you're making sure you have the one you're using is the one you need. So my armor is ever so slightly under what I want it to be, so I went with armor. If your dodge was low, go with dodge. Same with the other one. The only difference here is Most of this stuff isn't going to matter. Really, it's only the prefix that you ever need to think about. Currently, I have Chaos Dungeon Serpent Statue appearance chance because I'm trying to finish up my charms, and I don't want to waste stuff putting Serpent Statue on the map. The other one that I typically look for is Charm Drop chance. So for the same reason, when I'm trying to get charms, obviously you want a tier 5. Again, strength or dex makes very little difference overall because you can just shift them around as you need them, but get what you want from there. That's it for Avatar. Let's move on to some other thing. Okay, let's talk Mastery. Now, typically, you're gonna take this first page with most of your points. What do you want? What do you want, man? Should mic him up for this part. Enchant Mastery, you're gonna want the first page. Initially, you're gonna put 5 points, just minimum to get to the next one. Fill this up and get all 10, and then I would go back, fill this, and then get the extra points in the amp. The amp is not a ton of amp, and these points can be spent elsewhere. If you are having hit point issues, I recommend taking those points and putting them in the next tree. You're going to put 3 points into gear, armor, dodge, whatever. 5 points into enhanced skill rune duration, and the rest into hit point amplification. Again, if you don't care about your hit points, just take all of these, stick them into here, and get it as high as you can to get the extra amp. There's very little reason to use the last page unless you need like something specific, and I can't even think of a good reason. I guess the potion, if you were like heavy potion user, maybe you want to come and get potion effect. I don't actually know, but that's an option. Alchemy, basically this never changes for me. Down the left side for the enhanced potion stuff, down the middle for the mana potion stuff. Get your enhanced or your mana potion resource cost dampening upon 5 seconds of using a mana potion to help your resources. Get the one in the middle that your hit points remove dots when you use a hit point potion, because even though you won't use hit point potions often, this will deal with some very dangerous dots against certain enemies. And the last one, the 50% effect when using chance increase elixir, I go with so that when I'm using an enhanced potion, the item drop rarity potion, this will give you more of that. Alchemy is real easy. That's the whole thing. Moving on. Okay, over at the Rune Hunter Registry, the God's Blessing. Movement speed in the first slot. Very little reason to take any of the others. After that, I do item drop rarity and strength. Now, there are some other ones that are worth considering. Instead of strength, you could go with double drop rewards on disassemble. This is really helpful for players that don't get a lot of time to play, but still want to make sure they're getting their Procos Perfect fragments or whatever from the disassemble shop. This can be very helpful. The other one that I was just looking at that I'm debating whether it's would be better instead of the 5% strength would be the projectile link rune level. I'm not sure how much that would make a difference with the few projectiles that because I've only got what, 3? Yeah, 3 out of my 6 are projectiles. So I'd give 6 extra levels. I might do some testing with that in the future. The downside, obviously, is that comes with a resource cost amplification. If you're having any kind of mana issues, this would really compound those. I might end up testing this because I'm at a point where my strength is very high. Early on, though, I definitely would stick with just the strength and the item drop rarity because it's such a huge amount of item drop rarity for no downside. It's worth doing. Okay, another quick one over at the Offering to the 12 Gods. You're going to put 1 point into Alyssa, 1 point into Spica, 1 point into Vesper, and then you're going to either do Spica or Vesper until it is full, and then you're going to put the rest into the other. There is very little reason to do it any other way than that way. Your first point goes into those, 1 into each, and if you don't know how to do this, I'm going to show it really quick. You go all the way over, and then it will guarantee that your point is going to be that. You will spend more points, but you will get the thing you want. If you were really insane and wanted to keep resetting, you could just do random because it costs so few points. and just really keep slamming it until you get a bunch, and you might end up with more of what you want, but this is the generally accepted way to do it. Let's talk Runemaster points. Now, Runemaster is really flexible, and unless you're super optimized, there's not going to be massive differences in the stuff you will take to get damage. What I typically start with is I put my first bunch of points into, way down here at the bottom, into block expertise, just so I gain block as a non-shield user. It's a nice layer of defense for a bunch of points. I have to check because someone mentioned to me that this block chance doesn't matter if you don't have a shield, and I do need to test that, so I stopped putting points in there. But these 200 block expertise absolutely gives you block and is worth maxing out. After that, I typically go down here to the move speed stuff, and I max out all the move speed stuff so I can move faster. I feel like it's worth getting the however many points to do that. Next, I tend to go into the enhanced skills stuff, because your enhanced skill obviously is the most powerful thing you've got. I generally fill all of that out. I get the cooldown, recovery speed, duration, effect, and then level, which I don't have enough points currently for. The reason I've done that is because I was doing some testing with this to see if this was going to be worth doing, and it does a bunch of damage, and I'm not going to keep resetting it just to find out if it does more or not, but eventually these are where I'm going to put my points. The other place you can put your points that is very strong is damage amplification against enemies affected by blank. Now, all of these, as you gain different damage types, are going to be effective, and as always, they are going to work on everything except for champions in the first 15 seconds, which is why I don't use these instead of going for the extra amp here instead. This damage will affect the champions while they are in their immunity phase, whereas the others will only affect them when they're in their, or when they're out of their immunity phase. So I went with up here instead. Attack critical rate is not worth taking. It's so small, and it doesn't make much of a difference for the amount of points that it takes. Attack speed, we can get attack speed elsewhere. Attack hit rate is absolutely not important. We get lots of it. Outside of that, there are a ton of other things that you can take in here. If your chaos resist is low, you can throw some points in here to sort it out. If you need armor really badly, you can get armor in here and sort that out. There's a bunch of other things. Mana regen is helpful if you're having really bad mana problems. But for what it's worth, the initial stuff that I showed is what you should aim for first. And if you're playing seasonal, you're probably not going to get to maybe more than about 400 or 500 Runemaster, even if you're really playing a lot. So I tend to not show what I would do in super optimized situations. Okay, I think maybe that's all of it. I'm going to do a check, and if not, I'll see you in the outro. Okay, I know this video has taken way longer to get out than I wanted to. Generally, I like to do them at the 2-week mark and the 1-month mark, but now we are at the 6-week mark. But there's the build. I will be continuing with this, and I will do a updated version of this closer to the end of the season to show how far I've pushed it and any changes or things that I realized. It won't be nearly as long as this one. But there you go. If I did miss something and I don't catch it in editing, please let me know in the comments. If you have a suggestion for the build or a question about the build, please feel free to ask. I will answer just about anything that I have information on, and I will do my best to give you the best information I can. With that said, guys, I'm glad this is over. But for now, as always, stay safe, pet cats, eat broccoli, and you'll see me next time.